the color of my fingertips is gray, and they are stained by my hometown clay. With black, white, and red, the colors they bleed by the old seabed. They've been pushed around by the mighty Mashap who made this ground. Do you know what I mean? And I rise with the sun, and my sweat beads before my breakfast has begun. And I toiled this hallowed ground, neath this pile of clay down the Vineyard Sound. And it won't be long till I'm in the arms of the lady, the babes of the Queen. High above the shore, she shines her light through my home front door. And she shines red and then 3 whites, and she spins her beams through my darkest of nights. And it won't be long until I'm in the arms of the lady, the babes of the Queen. No, it won't be long until I'm in the arms of the lady, the babes of the Queen.
Hello. Welcome to Martha's Vineyard Book Festival's first ever winter event. We're so pleased that you're here. And how about that music by Kate Taylor and the ukuleles that they made available especially for us tonight? I'm Sue Ellen Lazarus, the director of the festival. And here too is Valerie Rosenberg, the festival's COO. We're here tonight in February because summers seem too far away. We knew that the incredible Michael J. Fox was the perfect antidote to this long winter. His story of resilience, optimism, and gratitude is just what we need at this time. Michael and the writer Harlan Coben gave us the perfect program. Thank you, Michael and Harlan. Now, I want to personally thank the friends of the festival who provide the essential support to make our events accessible to all. Thanks for your confidence in us. Thanks to the Vineyard Gazette and Bunch of Grapes bookstore, and also thanks to the small and mighty group, the team that puts this programming together and works so hard to make it all happen. In terms of this summer's festival, we are cautiously optimistic that we will be able to do some live programming in August. It would need to be smaller, some of it will still be virtual, but we're trying hard to find a model that works and is safe. We'll have more to come on this soon. Let me turn it over now to Valerie to talk briefly about tonight. Enjoy the program. We know you're in for a treat. Thanks, Valerie. Thank you all for joining us.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Valerie Rosenberg, and I'm the COO of the Martha's Vineyard Book Festival and Author Series. Thank you for joining us for our winter event. We're delighted that you could all join us. This free event is possible through the support of so many of you who've made generous contributions. If you've already made a contribution, thank you. If you haven't had a chance to make one yet, please consider it tonight. This is what keeps our programming free. It's easy to contribute through the link on the screen. I encourage all of you to support our local independent bookstores. Thanks to a heroic signing and shipping effort by our author, autographed copies of his book are now available through our bookstore partner, Bunch of Grapes, here in Martha's Vineyard. You can buy it tonight from the link provided. We'd also like to thank the Vineyard Gazette, our media sponsor, and a special thanks to Kate Taylor and friends for providing our soundtrack this evening. The recording of this event will be available at our website, mvbookfestival.com, and you can find out more about our upcoming programming. Now, let me tell you about tonight. I encourage you to post questions for our extraordinary guest. Michael J. Fox is an Emmy Award-winning television and film actor. His enduring career as a performer has made him an icon across the world. His well-loved characters include Alex P. Keaton of Family Ties, Mike Flaherty in Spin City, Marty McFly in the Back to the Future series, and Lewis Canning in The Good Wife, to name just a few. In 1991, at age 29, Michael was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He has since become a leading advocate, founding the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research in 2000. The foundation has raised an extraordinary $1 billion in support of Parkinson's research. Michael is also a New York Times bestselling author of 4 critically acclaimed books. And luckily for us, he's also a seasonal resident of Martha's Vineyard. Tonight, he'll be discussing his amazing new memoir, No Time Like the Future, An Optimist Considers Mortality. Michael will be interviewed tonight by his friend Harlan Coben. Harlan is the creator and executive producer of many hit shows, including the Netflix series The Stranger and Safe. With more than 75 million books in print worldwide, Harlan is the #1 New York Times best-selling author of 31 novels. He also has a new book, Win, that will be coming out on March 16th and is available for pre-order through Bunch of Grapes. I can't wait to read it. We're truly honored to have these dynamic authors together with us this evening. Now I'll turn it over to Harlan.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Is Mike coming on with us here? Welcome, everybody. Where's my pal, Mike?
Oh, here I'm hiding behind a contribute sign.
How are you, pal?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. By the way, you'll see a green button there that says buy the book. If you click it, you can buy your own copy of Michael's new book, No Time Like the Future. What I love about Mike's book is not only is Mike's picture on the front cover, but in case you don't know who the author is, you can look on the back of the cover and see yet another picture of Michael J. Fox. Mike, I was actually thinking a year ago today, we were on one of our golf trips that we take, that you talk about in the book. We take annually in February, March is our time period. And we're right at the 1-year anniversary of our last one. It's been a year. How do you feel? Like, how's this last year been for you? I mean, what's it been like?
It's been busy. I mean, last year, if you consider that we went into quarantine in March, which was an amazing experience. I talk about it in the book that, you know, this terrible thing is happening, and people are dying in isolation, and there's tents in Central Park, people treating the ill, and it's just so awful. And yet, I was writing a book, and it was in my family, we were all together, and they were having meals and doing jigsaw puzzles, and we were all aware of the dichotomy. It was a really strange time. And then the summer ended and the book came out, and it's just been busy.
Well, you were actually writing the book when we first went into lockdown. You and I were talking about this and how it kind of changed everything a little bit for you. You know, first of all, let's start with this. Why did you write this book? In other words, you are Michael J. Fox. You are one of the biggest stars in the world. You've been in 1 million favorite movies and TV shows of ours. You've written 3 other books, so you can kind of be coasting. And I know that you actually write this book. I know that you suffer the same way I suffer. When you write a book, you whine, you complain. It's not easy. So why? Why
thank you for whining back. It was really good.
We have a mutual whine society.
Yeah,
like we always say, if you want some wine with a little more cheese with that wine, we complain too much. But why did you want to write? Why did you write this book? Start with that.
I think because it was an extraordinary series of events that happened with the you know, to say in the book, Parkinson's and I have a deal. Like does its thing and eats my brain as much as it wants to, and this leaves me a little room to do what I want to do, and it all works out. But then I had this tumor to my spine that they said had to come out, or I was going to be paralyzed. So that had to come out, and then that just knocked me down another level to where I couldn't walk. I literally have a hard time walking now, but I couldn't. I had to learn how to do it again, transfer weight, shift without toppling over, and so I did that, and that was cool. And then I broke my arm as a result of the surgery, and it just was like this. And I got to a place where I said, "Who might I be, Mr. Optimism? Like make lemons out of lemonade? I'm not in the lemonade business. It sucks. This only sucks." and I started to really think about how I kind of held up optimism as a panacea, and how I chin up to all these people whose misery I can't even imagine. And I just felt I went into a dark place, or not a dark place, but a deep place. I tried to figure this stuff out. Try to figure out what is I still optimistic? Was optimism finite, or could I still find some optimism in me? And how would I find it? And where would I look?
Right, you were known as the guy. I mean, people who are here have probably read some of their books. You are known as the optimist guy, the looking on the bright side guy. But let's break down a little bit of what you were talking about.
Yeah, I was looking at the bright side guy in the wheelchair for
a couple of years. So let's start, I guess, with, first of all, you've had Parkinson's since 1991. 1991. That's 30 years. I'm not a math major, but
yeah,
30. So it's 30 years. That's half your life. You're 59. It's more than half your life.
Yeah, it's 58 is the 59 is the average age of someone diagnosed with Parkinson's, and I had it for 29 years by the time I was 58.
And you are, I mean, you're an optimist, but the name of the book is talking about an optimist considers mortality. So your optimism was really hit hard. Let's start with the surgery. I mean, my first recollection of noticing it, literally one of the times we're playing golf, and you stumble, you have Parkinson's, but
I fall down.
You just went down in a sand trap. I'm smiling about it now. I wasn't smiling about it at the time. You went down
right?
with a top tree. So tell us a little bit of how this came about, because it's not connected. This tumor that was on your spine is not connected to your Parkinson's. So tell us a little bit about that.
It's just a wonderful combination. It's just like you can dream this up. Parkinson's affects my balance, and it affects my gait. It affects my sense of proprioception, where I am in space, and that's exactly what the spinal thing. Because what happened was this tumor was squeezing my spinal cord and wreaking havoc and taking straight ahead of my legs, and so combination of weak legs and no balance, it just fall all the time, and I went from a wheelchair to a walker to a cane to aids walking me around, and finally learned to walk again. But and then got really cocky about how I was walking, let myself be alone in the apartment, and fell and broke my arm. But it was just it's just a thing. You take it and you roll with it. But the Parkinson's is one thing. Parkinson's just is insidious. It just showed up and became part of my life, and that I didn't do anything to make it happen. It just happened. Same with the spine. I didn't do anything to make that happen. It just happened. The reason why the broken arm was the thing that really pissed me off was that was my fault, and pride had led me to tell everybody to leave me alone. We were on the Vineyard on vacation, and I had to go back to New York to do a cameo on a Spike Lee film. Spike also being a Vineyarder, and so I went back and I insisted on being alone, and I did what they told me. I had one job to do: don't fall, and I fell.
All right. So this is after your surgery. You're finally starting to feel a little bit Eurotes a little bit, and your daughter Skylar is with you, and you basically, she wants to stay, but you send her home.
Yeah, hustle her out the door. She's so sweet, and she's just. I mean, I felt so bad for her the next day when I was lying on the floor waiting for the ambulance to come. Cause I really shattered my arm, man. It was pretty bad.
Yeah,
so I'm lying on the floor waiting for the ambulance to come, and I was just thinking, like, she's gonna take this on. She's gonna say, I should have been there, and those are all the things that like you think about illness or chronic disease or any situation where you're compromised, your abilities are compromised. It's the people around you that it affects too, and it's a real battle between like take care of yourself and knowing what you can do and what you can accomplish and what you can't accomplish and what your boundaries are and what your potential is, and then it measures against everybody else who have their own ideas of what your abilities are and what your expectations should be, and they're actually helping you. So it's a hard thing to work out. Caregiving is a difficult position to be in, and when your whole family are essentially your caregivers, and it takes a village for you to move around in life. It really hit me hard when I realized I may have let them down. I may have disrespected their concern.
I know we're having a little video problem with Mike, but Vince will be on it in 2 seconds. So we'll still continue to talk, and for a little while we'll be an audio podcast, and until we see. I'll hold this up so that'll be like I'm talking to Mike until Mike comes back. Mike, you're still there, right? Audio-wise, you're still here with us?
Yeah, audio-wise, I am.
Okay, I guess they'll fix you in a moment. But let's talk a little bit about this big moment you describe in the book, the spinal surgery moment. So, you're back. Good to see you. Tell us about your picking. You have Dr. Theodore. Tell us about your first meeting with him, how you ended up choosing him and going down to Johns Hopkins and all that. Well,
I went to a lot of doctors, and Tracy and I met with quite a few with carrying around my films of my spine, the films as they existed at that point, and it was really, I mean, like I said, it's so scary, but I'm looking at it from an angle. It's like watching a scene where they say this truth you shouldn't say that, and we'll do it. We won't touch it. And as I studied, wow, this is really hairy. This is serious. This isn't like a bad back. This is existential. And so we met this guy, and he was great. He said, I see why people we went to Johns Hopkins and met Dr. Theodore. And he was just suggested to me, and he was a great guy, big Greek guy, big like you, giant guy, and he said, I see why the other people didn't want to do this. This is a mess. This is terrible. And then I said, yeah, well, no one else wanted to touch it. And he said, well, do you want to be the guy who paralyzes Michael J. Fox? and it made me laugh so hard. I said, this guy's got to be good.
That's like when I was at the poker tournament with you, and I was playing against you at the Michael J. Fox Foundation poker tournament. We were going kind of head to head, and I had a moment where I could have put a bet in to maybe knock you out. And our mutual friend, and all of you probably know the great actor Richard Kind, who was with Mike on Spin City, says in his usual voice, he turns to me and goes, do you want to be the guy responsible for knocking Michael J. Fox out of his own poker tournament? I said, hell yeah. Of course, I still lost the bet and I got knocked out.
Yeah. You paid for that. Were we back? Are we home?
What's that?
Are we back? Are we
Yeah,
home?
You're back. I see you. Everybody sees you. Everybody's good. I think I see you. They see me, so we're all good. You know, it was interesting. Today, by coincidence, I was doing an interview with the Times of London, and the guy had read your book. So he asked me about it because he noticed my name in it. And we were both remarking on what a great writer you are. I don't mean to pump sunshine up your skirt because I don't have to, but you're a nimble. You're a nimble writer, and there's phrases besides this moving story. There's phrases that make me actually stop in my tracks, and you have a way of summing things up very, very quickly. Is this a talent you know, we know you as an actor. So an actor, you read other people's lines, but where did that come from?
I've always loved books. I love books since I was a little kid. I can remember books, memories of like those 50s primers with dogs and kids, and books. I've always loved books, and I always loved words. My father loved words, and he was not an educated man, but he loved words. He loved wordplay. He broke codes for the army. He was just in the signal corps, and so I always loved words, and I love. If you read that book, my latest book, I never had a cliche I didn't love.
Yeah, but I mean, you put a twist on a lot of these. It's genuinely funny. I mean, I'm used to you being funny, but it's genuinely funny and moving in a short, pithy sentence. I mean, there's a million quotable. I think people will find they're expecting the story, the moving story, and they're going to get that and all of that. And
I got a bottle of seltzer too.
But it's really the writing is so nimble and so clever. I think that's gonna. And I know how hard you worked on it because we were talking while this was going on. I don't know why you put yourself through this. It's easier to. Is it not easier to act or easier to write?
It's easier to write.
Easier to write.
Well, I like just working it out. I like just sitting there and when you're writing, whatever you're doing, you should be writing, or you are writing. Whatever you're doing, if you're writing a book, like it's just everything. So, like to just sit there and work it out and ask myself questions I wouldn't ask myself otherwise, and find answers that I wouldn't expect from myself. And what I was saying about the cliche is I love to take things that people are familiar with, ideas, and then just twist them. So you feel comfortable. You feel. I mean, that's my goal is to make people feel comfortable in the book. And what I liked about this book, relative to my other ones, is that it's so concise and it goes straight forward.
Yeah.
And because that was the experience. The experience was really one of being on a runaway train.
But you're extraordinarily honest with the battle that you were facing and the optimism that your optimism being tested. There's a section here where you talk about being in a wheelchair sometimes. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that at all? Like how you feel from your position?
Well, being in a wheelchair is really strange because especially if you're new to it. Can't speak to people who've been in a wheelchair all their lives, but to be introduced to a wheelchair at that point of your life when you've been independently mobile for all your memory, being in a wheelchair is like you can't see the person pushing you. So if the only time I was in wheelchairs at hotels and airports, so you got some guy who just wants his $5 at the end of pushing you wherever you're going, and you can't talk to him, and he could park you in a corner in an elevator facing the wall, and you could speak up, but he can't hear you because you're too low, and the world is all asses and elbows. It's just asses and elbows, and then your luggage. It was really disturbing to me. And then I had the other side of it. The fun side of it was when I was going to my therapy at Mount Sinai in New York. I returned to New York from Baltimore, and I had this aide, this daytime aide who was great. This Caribbean lady, and she was just funny. She buzzed through the crowd like Richard Petty. She's like run people down, and it was terrorizing, but really fun. And that was the upside of wheelchairs, like how you can clear a path that can cut like a scythe through a Manhattan sidewalk.
Like it's like taking a New York taxi where you start to cheer on the taxi driver.
Yeah,
crazier and crazier.
And he says, "Yeah, I would run him over, but I had to fill out a form."
So I want to put this in order for people because we're jumping around a little bit. So first came this major spinal surgery. Then when you're recovering from the spinal surgery, so we'll talk about that a little bit. That's when you have a fall and you get the spiral break in your arm that for a while you were showing us X-rays up like it was a picture of your of a baby or a dog, because it was pretty freaky stuff. But so let's start with this, a little bit of the surgery, because it was massive, and the recovery process was really tough. So you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, it was a really serious surgery. It was because it was really high on my spine. It literally was existential. If they did the wrong thing, they could kill me, or paralyze me, or so those two. That's all you need. Those two cover it. He was just so confident and so reassuring and big, like I said, big guy, big hands. I kept thinking, the sausage fingers, or the hands like too big. But he described the surgery to me later. It was so meticulous and he was so zen-like about it. And he had to remove this mass from my spine. It had gone through and was restricting the cord. It was actually on the cord. You can't touch the cord. If you touch the cord, it's all over. So they had to somehow remove this mass from the cord without actually touching the cord. So he did several MRIs and mapped this thing meticulously, and it was 6 hours of surgery.
6 hours.
And like, you have to ask the question: did you go to the bathroom? And he's like, "No, I 6 hours worked on your spine." Depends. Anything. But it was. I felt so. This is good you bring this up because I felt so grateful to them, and then they were so great with Tracy, and so great with my family when they came to visit. So great in therapy. They were so concerned and so like just everything was top flight, and so when and that went all the way down the line. The nurses, and I was a pain in the ass in the hospital. I always want to be like that guy in the movies that goes and gets his coat and his hat out of the closet and sneaks out of the hospital. But I was a pain in the ass. And they were great. And then I had a home aides that came to my when I got back to my apartment in New York and took care of me. And they were all interesting. I thought I didn't want them, but I liked them as people, and I appreciate what they do. But I just wanted to be alone. I wanted to get through this myself at a certain point, and so when I isolated, I made Skylar go home, and I knew I was home alone. And I woke up the next morning, and I had all this stuff to do before I left, and I felt like I let all those people down. Well, that series of people, all those people that invested in my because I didn't know if I hurt my back. I didn't know. I didn't know if it was still just fresh surgery.
Right, so you're lying on the ground. You fell. No one's home. You're lying on the ground alone.
Yeah, the hard tile kitchen floor that I was so pretty just killed me. It was so hard. I managed to have my cell phone in my back pocket, my sweatpants. And I couldn't call Tracy because she was in the vineyard, and I would just freak her out, and she'd have to get a cab or get a plane or get a boat, and so I thought they're doing a good calling her now. It just upset her. So then I thought I can't call Sky because she'll feel terrible, and so I called my assistant Nina, who was a fixer and a body man, and she got and she threw some pants over her pajamas and got over there and got me to the hospital. And then I remember two really ridiculously good looking EMTs coming in, like a guy and a gal, and they were just like out of a Dick Wolf show. They were like a Chicago PD or something. and they asked me if I would want some morphine. And I said yes, very much, please, thank you. and they hooked me up with that. And then next thing I know, a doctor who happened to be a woman, Dr. Glatz. She showed me an X-ray, and I'm coming out of anesthesia, and I see this blurry image of an X-ray. It looks like a sonogram, but it's an X-ray, and it looked like just a bunch of broken sticks. And I said, "What's that?" She said, "That's your arm." and now here's your arm with a pin and 19 pins and a plate in it. And you mentioned that, like, after a couple of days after I was in the hospital, I had this thing, and I thought it was so great that I could show it to people and say, like if they said, "What happened to you?" I could say, "This happened to me," because with Parkinson's, I don't have that. I don't have that thing where I can say,
Wow.
This is what's happening to me. It's all external. It's all, there's no X-ray of it. I mean, in research, we're finding new ways to image things. So I shouldn't say there is no. We're finding ways to make to image certain proteins and the like. But on a personal level, to have something to show and to it was really strange. I was like an uncle with a funny picture of a fish that looked like a penis or something. The uncle that shows just crazy guys with their little show stuff, and I drove people crazy with it.
That was good. It did illustrate. It was rather gruesome, but it did illustrate your titanium arm. Now I know before all this started to happen, you wanted to write a book, really, and you do a little bit in this book. Still talk a little bit about golf. But you wanted to write a golf book that you were going to apply the lessons of golf to life. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, I'm going to do a diagram. And
so, still, what are the lessons that we can get from? Because I want to learn. If we're going to be playing, what are some of the lessons, or how does golf apply still to your life and to this stuff? Because you did come back. You did come back. We should point out that you came back. I don't know how long ago. How long was it from the time you had the surgery till we played and you hit the drive that you talk about in the book?
Well, that was January or February, was it?
Yes, it was February 2 years ago. Yeah.
So it's about 10 months. I had surgery in April.
Right.
The previous April. It was still relatively within the realm of recent, and so it did need to be watched. But yeah, I remember I drove you on that.
Yeah.
And you said, "No fair, you got a titanium arm."
That's right. I said it's not fair. He has a titanium arm, so yeah, it drove me. That was my excuse. And making excuse, of course, is a huge part. Of golf.
Making excuses, and you just are completely helpless. Like no matter how skilled you are, no matter what you bring to it. I bring nothing to it, and still manage to underperform. But I just love the game, and Harlan's a skilled golfer, and yet every once in a while I cannot drive him.
You have a great line. Actually, I was reading it earlier today. We were talking about us all golfing, and you talk about us. We call us the uncles, the people we play with. Look past my difficulties in playing golf with Parkinsons and embrace the truth that golf is hell for everyone. We all feel the burn. The joy is not in overcoming or defeating it. Instead, it's in surviving it and settling the bets on the 19th hole, which kind of describes it.
I mean, what golf was for me was what, and I would say was because I don't picture myself golfing anytime soon, but golf was you guys. It was just all my friends. It was just all my buddies, and it was at a time in my life, in my 40s, I started golf. My 40s with Parkinson's, I started golf. So I mean, I am an optimist.
That's insane.
That's a card carrying optimist, and I just loved it, and I found that I had in all my time in Los Angeles and in the early part of my marriage, the first 10 years or so of my marriage. My world had gotten smaller. It gotten, and so this opened the doors to all these new people and new places, new experiences. I never go to Florida in January. I mean, I just never would occur to me. But then there was golf,
right?
And we had a great time. And
yeah, we did.
And so that continues to sustain me. It was really important during this time. So it was going to be a book about golf, and then all this stuff happened and being about that, and golf being part of the background. But golf fueled some of the attitudes in life that are reflected in the book, particularly gratitude. I mean,
my favorite character in this book, as you know, is Tracy Pollen. For those who don't know, most people know Mike's wife, Tracy Pollen, who he co-starred with and met on Family Ties many years ago. And Tracy's an extraordinary person. The Pollen family, for those who don't know, is an extraordinary family. Brother Michael Pollen is the big nonfiction writer and does the food stuff. The rest of the family has written cookbooks. Tracy's father, who Mike talks about, is passing away, and their close relationship in this book, wrote a wonderful book on finance called Die Broke that I had read even before I met Mike. So it's just a ridiculously accomplished family. But talk a little bit, my advice to you on the book was even more Tracy. I couldn't get quite enough Tracy.
Yeah, you great notes. I gave you the book at a critical time. I sent it to you. You were so lovely to look at it. And you gave me great notes and you liked it very much. And then you said, more Tracy, more showbiz.
More Tracy, more, right. People want to hear the showbiz stories.
More Tracy, more showbiz.
Every time Tracy was off screen, we all miss her.
I looked at my document and I said, this could use more Tracy, more showbiz. so I looked into these things and I said, what part did Tracy play? And inevitably she played a part in everything. I mean, everything I looked at, I could see some reflection of her touch and her attention. And so it was easy to do that. And it was easy. And I said, like, these moments, like the moment that I was waiting to go into surgery, and I was looking at her and I was thinking, for better or for worse, sickness and health. And she got robbed on that one. I cashed that, she didn't. And so what does that mean? And that support that I mean, even last night I was struggling with something, and Tracy so definitely fixed it. And I said, I can't let that pass. I have to say thank you for that. But I don't have to say thank you for it. I did, but I didn't have to. And it just, I started to think about that as I wrote the book, and I, like I said, she infused everything. And so that was an easy note to take. And I really one I was happy to take. And as far as more showbiz goes, it was, I wanted to visit the way that my life has changed professionally over the course of the years, and how it got better in a way. The work that I was doing was different work. I didn't have to carry the show. I didn't have to be the number one on the call sheet. I didn't have to be the pressure point of the whole situation. I could just be this goofy doctor who fakes symptoms and make juries vote his way. So it was an extraordinary time during my career, and I thought, and it added a lot to the book when I went into it. So I credit you for that.
No, Tracy, it's interesting because I think when people read this, we're talking about like you being a deft writer is how deft Tracy is in handling this situation, where she's not, I mean, you could also be melodrama or cloying or too much or not give space. And I noticed a lot when we're with you, she gives you, she's always has kind of an eye on you, but gives you that freedom. It's sort of it's a wonderful balance that you got, that she has struck in caring and yet not being overwhelming or suffocating.
There's that story I tell in the book about, we were coming back from Europe one time. We'd been over, I think, because one of our kids was in a school program in Copenhagen. And we were on the flight back, and we were in first class, and we had those pods, and I was beside her in the pod, and I had to go to the restroom or something. I crawled over her without waking her, and then I came back, and I realized why the seat across the aisle was empty. So I thought, why crawl across her again? I'll just sit in the seat across the aisle, let her sleep. And then there was a thunderclap. We hit some turbulence. It was brief but really loud and violent, and it woke her up. And immediately she looked next to me, saw that I wasn't in the seat next to her, got up, bolted to the front of the plane looking for me. And I thought, you can't fake that.
No. Yeah, that's a beautiful story, man. That's a beautiful story. Yeah, no, and the whole Pollen family that you've been so close to. I really found the parts where you talk about spending, your father-in-law's passing and the time that you spent with him. I mean, you really got a complete family unit. For those who don't know, you have 4 kids, you and Tracy. Your baby's off to college.
Yeah, she didn't go to college. She was very smart. She her freshman year she took a gap year, and she looked around and said, "This is not normal."
Right.
But they were extraordinary during this whole experience. Just to kick off on Esme, but the class of 2020, they due to circumstance, they had no pomp.
Yeah.
It was nothing, and yet they were so philosophical about it, and so like understood the seriousness of what was happening, and realized that in perspective, their issues were not comparable. But they were mature enough to do that, and I was struck by how I always thought of my parents as being born in the Great Depression and coming of age during World War II, and I thought of Esme being born just after 9/11.
I'm not hearing Michael. Am I out or somebody else? Are you guys out? Can you hear me, Mike? Can you hear me? I can't hear. So I can't hear anybody right now? Okay, you can hear me, I guess, but not Mike yet. So we'll have somebody come running in and try to help us with the audio. This is always the problem with this. All right, there's Tracy. So you guys wanted a little Tracy. You wanted a little Tracy. You got Tracy very briefly. Are you back on? No, still not there. So you got a little bit of Tracy. So I really can't ask you too many questions while we're doing this. Maybe the Bluetooth is gone. Yeah, someone's suggesting maybe try taking the headphones off. Nope, still not working. Right now we have our technical advisor calling Mike. For those, again, who don't know, while we're sitting here, we are talking about Mike's new book, No Limits Like the Future. No Time Like the Future, An Optimist Considers Mortality. Do you see there's like a little green button right there or there, depending on which side of the screen I am on with you? See where it says buy the book? You can click that and buy this book. And the other thing is, from all this we're being sold to, sponsored tonight by a Bunch of Grapes bookstore. But please, everybody, support your local independent bookstores now more than ever. There we go. I think I can hear you. Talk, Mike. Can I hear you?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back.
I mean, I'm not going to bother with the headphones.
Yeah, take them off. Keep them off. You sound fine.
Good.
All right. Let's talk about your tattoo.
Yeah.
Can you show it to us? Mike got his first tattoo at the age of 50-something or other.
I don't know if I can get this button in there.
Yeah, to get it off. As well. The pictures of the tattoo are in the book as well.
When I get this shirt open, I'll tell you the story of it. It's a story I told him, I think both my other books too. It just keeps going back. But it was New Year's 1999 into 2000. It was the last. It was a big Y2K thing. And we were in the Caribbean, and we were. It was the last dip of the afternoon, New Year's Eve. And so I went into the ocean, and Tracy was on the beach, and I was snorkeling through the lagoon. I saw this turtle, a sea turtle, and he looked like he'd been through the wars. He had a scar on his beak, and he had a chunk taken out of his fin. And I just watched him, and then I kind of started to swim with him, and he didn't seem to mind too much. It didn't give me much consideration. He just kept doing what he was doing, and I followed him for about 20 minutes. And just growing admiration for this guy, because obviously, I mean, I've seen those little turtles come down the beach and get picked up by the cormorants, and it doesn't get any easier after that. So for turtle to last that long and be that big and that weather, he seemed a powerful symbol to me. And so I came up. I was trying. I should say I was trying at the time to figure out whether to stay with Spin City or to start the foundation, because I had a strong impulse to start the foundation. There were strong ideas about what I wanted to do, what I wanted to accomplish. And so I saw this turtle and I spent a half an hour with him. And I got out of the water. I went to Tracy and I said, "I'm leaving the show and start the foundation." You know, I literally can't get this cuff.
I'll show a picture of it. It's in the book. But when did you get it though? I mean, that story's 20 years old, but you know 30 years old, whatever. But you didn't get the
end of that year. The end of that. Oh, yeah.
What made you decide to get the tattoo?
I wanted something to remind me of resilience and the dignity of that animal and how it made me feel. It kind of transferred that to me in making that decision, start the foundation, which was a really good decision.
I'm going to open it up to the vote, to the questions that people are asking. If people want to ask, you see where it says "ask a question," feel free to type one in. We obviously won't get to them all. Several people are asking about, of course, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which we now passed the $1 billion with a B dollar mark. Am I correct in that? Money raised?
Raised and directed. Some people have big chunks of money and want to know where to put it. And so we put it with some researchers. So it's beyond our wildest dreams. We started. We were like, I finished doing Spin City, and we had an office at Chelsea Piers, and I just didn't leave my office. I just turned it in the office for the foundation and tell anybody. And we just squatted for about 6 months, getting the foundation off the ground. I lost you, Harlan.
So, okay, let me just keep going here.
Oh, yeah, so we started the foundation with the idea that we had simple principles. We had one was the science is ahead of the money, because we talked to enough scientists to know that the research was there and the promising paths were making themselves a bit evident, but they didn't have the money. So we started as a purely science-oriented foundation and just raised meager amounts of money, $2-3 million a year at first, and put it with certain researchers, and then it just started to flow and grow. And we would joke and say, wouldn't it be great to give $20 million to researchers in one year? And we now give like $6-7 million to dozens of researchers.
Are you optimistic?
I am optimistic. I don't personalize a lot of this stuff. I don't equate it to my getting better or my. I don't think in those terms, but I think I kind of have this vision of this finding the answer, finding the solution. Big long line of people in line like with the vaccination, long line of people waiting to get it, and then kind of standing there looking at it and then going, "Oh, geez, I should get in this line." It feels separate from me, the work of the foundation, because it's its own thing. It's its own magnificent beast. It's going to get the job done. But it's humbling to know that we had an ambition and a goal and a dream, and a lot of people bought into it, and we're gonna figure this out.
All right. Jason is asking, when you're having a rough day, is there a particular song or saying you like to think of that helps you through it?
Oh, there is, I'm sure. I always have a snippet of a song in my head, and it has a rotation for about 3 weeks, and then it goes out, and then another one comes. What song? I'd say Glory Days always makes me feel good. No Surrender, I was strange sometimes.
Little Bruce.
Bruce is always good to cheer me up.
That you're not going to hear me argue with, being a New Jersey boy. Let's see. Hey, Michael, if you were able to talk to your 29-year-old self who had just been diagnosed, is there any advice or wisdom you could give yourself?
Yeah, don't wait for 2 years. Stop drinking now.
Stop
drinking now.
Stop drinking now. That's another thing we didn't really touch on much about that. You touched on it in the earlier books more, that period of your life. And
my response to the diagnosis was to just start drinking heavily.
Be self-destructive.
And after a couple of years, I realized I was.
You've been sober a long time, though. I mean, since
I've been sober since they invented sobriety, 30 years.
Michael, do you have a grateful practice daily? Tracy is asking.
A grateful practice daily. I meditate every day, twice a day. And I
meditate.
Yeah, gratitude in that.
You started that fairly late. I mean, that's something that's within the last 3 or 4 years, right?
George showed me how to do it.
Yeah.
George is a good thing. Our friend
George Stephanopoulos has turned us both on to transcendental meditation, interestingly enough. So, yeah, we should do that together sometime. That would be fun.
I always get these invitations to join group meditations. I'm like, the whole idea is that it's like I'm not with anybody.
I know. It is. It's like this group one. It's like, right, you spend all the time teaching us to do it alone.
Well, I'm trying to hey, how you doing?
Well, somebody from, this is interesting because this is a New Jersey question. I don't know if you know, New Jersey passed legalized marijuana yesterday, legal technically, but it's someone asking, cannabis has been used by many to address the symptoms of Parkinson's. Do you have a personal view on that, good or bad, or do you not really know? Or
I think it's great. I mean, I don't know all the versions of it, so I can't speak to the extent of it. To a point, it's certainly great. I use the cream. Which are on my muscles and on my body, and it's really, I find it really helps, really effective. I think that the edibles and the smokables like message with my sobriety, so I wouldn't touch that.
There's a lot of questions in here saying how great you are, so I'll skip all those because
Yeah, my mom.
Let's just see here a lot about your movies. Oh, let's talk about, I guess a lot of people are asking you how you found Martha's Vineyard or why, or what Martha's Vineyard is to you and all that sort of a thing.
It's a great thing that happened in my life. We Tracy and I were on our honeymoon in the Caribbean, and at the time we were, for some reason, big targets and paparazzi. And so we had all these paparazzi following us around on boats, and everywhere we went, they jump out of the bushes, and it just drove us crazy. And they said, "Why don't we go to the Vineyard?" And so this Vineyard, she said, "I grew up there. Where are we going every summer?" And I said, "Sure." And it said, "They're just going to follow us." And she said, "Yeah, but we'll be in the Vineyard, so it'll be fine." And sure enough, we got there, and they kind of took a few pictures and then went away. But I looked around and I said, "I would have married you just for this." How could you not tell me about this place? This place is amazing. And I've been going there 30 years.
Yeah, that's great. Let's here's a movie TV question. Of all of your movies and TV series, what do you consider, if you consider one, what would the one thing you would consider your defining piece of work?
I have to say, because I get so many cracks at it, and so many different versions of his behavior and his attitude and his approach to life, would be Alex Keaton.
Alex Keaton.
Martin McFly, for sheer impact, to be part of that movie. Any part of the movie is to be part of its juggernaut. It's just a force of its own. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It's real. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just lucky to be in it. So
we talk a lot, though, the way people react to Back to the Future. And I know everybody here, I'm sure, has seen the movie, of course. But it is startling that it is, when we were kids growing up, every year the Wizard of Oz was on TV. So everybody of all generations knew Wizard of Oz. But everybody from the youngest people to, people older than us even, all have an attachment to Back to the Future. That's still cool, isn't it?
Well, when we were kids, we were the exact same age. We had like 2 channels, 3 channels. Right. And in Canada, we had less than you guys had down here. And every year, like Christmas, they'd play Wizard of Oz. And it's not like you didn't have VHS tapes, you didn't have no other opportunity to watch it. except when it was on TV once a year. And I always watched it for the Flying Monkeys. The Flying Monkeys is my jam. That's very into them. And now I realize as I meet people that the generations like Back to the Future, that I am their Flying Monkeys.
How scary were the Flying Monkeys? What the heck was up with that? Who came up with that? That was terrifying when you were a kid. Still terrifying.
The big green guy, but I realized that we represent that. The movie represents that to people in the same way.
Wow, that's something. All right, let's do other questions here. You know, a lot of people are asking, what after this pandemic, what's it taught you? Is there anything new that's taught you? What is that? What's the one thing of advice we can get from it?
I don't know that it's taught me anything. It's reinforced beliefs that I struggled to finding it, and it was amazing timing as it was articulating this really personal thing that this book is about in the context of this massive world-shaking event, and realizing that even in that there's some gratitude, like I said before, that for all the horrible stuff and the images of families being separated from their loved ones, and all that, the counter families together in stadium and develop their relationships in there. My kids had conversations with my kids I never would have had. After dinner, lingering after dinner for the 13th, 14th, 15th night in a row.
Right.
Having the same different versions of the same conversation about social justice, about government role in public health and all that stuff. And it was an amazing time. So I found gratitude. And I think in anything, the upshot of this book for me was that in anything you can find gratitude. If you can find gratitude, then you can find optimism.
Yeah, following up on this a little bit, and I think one of the things I think that is cool, we both are around the same age, we both have children around the same age, and that your kids, as they grow, they get more interesting. When they become people think that it's when their kids are 4 or 5 or 6 years old, but our kids, our youngest kids are all like 18, 19, around that age, graduating high school. You want to spend more time with them now than ever. You find that too?
Yeah, the first time they say something, you go, wow, what an incredible thought that is. Where did that come from?
Right.
And you realize that they're independent engineers of their thought and their philosophy and their point of view. You can't, it's nothing you give them, it's something they inherit from you. It's what they develop and what interests attract them, and then it spins back to you, and you're astounded by it. And they're just like, and how they're all. I always talk about my twin daughters. Should be a familiar name to a lot of people watching this. My daughter Quinn and Silent were in utero, went to transfusion, which was one of the babies was hogging the blood supply and hogging the food supply, and the other one was getting emaciated, and so they had to be induced, and so to this day, Scott, who was the one who got all the food, and all that, is magnanimous and generous, and Mona is magnanimous and generous too, but she makes sure she gets what she needs. She's very independent and very feisty, and that was written before they got here. So I find out with kids that they surprise you, they surprise you all the way along. They're always, every year of my kids' experience on this planet has been a lesson for me and a joy for me.
How are you on the nature nurture question? I kind of always say that before you have kids, you think it's all nurture, but I look at parenting as sort of being like a car mechanic. Like the car comes in, you can fix it, you can get it on the road, but if it comes on a Toyota SUV, it's not going out a Corvette flash car or whatever else.
Right.
What's your take on that, nature versus nurture?
With the girls, it was kind of pre-written that they were going to have that kind of relationship.
Right.
And so that we were lucky because we could actually see it fomented in Europe by these sonograms. Yeah. But no, I think kids are who they are. I was saying with my son, he's taller, smarter, funnier, and better looking than me, and that's the goal.
Right. Sam's a great kid. We're going to wrap this up, folks, because it's getting time. A couple of housekeeping notes. Again, you can get the book that we're talking about. It's fantastic. You're going to love it. And you can read it. The funny thing, I mean, I read it all literally in one day, in one night. Most people will. But you can, because it's sort of a series of essays. You can try to do the beer nuts way of trying to have just a few and then save it for tomorrow or whatever else. In today's world where people are having trouble focusing for long periods of time, and I actually bought 20 of these myself, and I gave them out to everybody as gifts, and not strictly because my name was in it. So yeah, you also have the other photo of Mike. So you have 2 author photos of Mike by the book. Please support both this one, Bunch of Grapes bookstore, and any independent bookstore. They're really struggling right now, and we all know that they're just so good for your neighborhood. Otherwise, a Gap is going to move in there instead, or whatever else, right? So just try to support your independent bookstore if you can. I know Mike and I are both big fans of independent bookstores.
My independent bookstore in my neighborhood. I go in, I talk about a book. I still got a package the other day, a book called Trump and Shakespeare. The pair of Shakespeare's plays that Trump's was. And but when I say I like that book, and he goes, "Okay, Mike," and then 2 weeks later, a week later, 3 days later, a package comes in brown paper, and I put it up and it's the book, and it's just a great experience.
And you love books more. You love books more than as much as anybody. You read as much as anybody I know. You're big. You love to give books as gifts. You're a big book guy. This is not something you're doing on the side or a celebrity book. This is something that really means something to you.
Books are passionate.
Yeah. I want to thank the Martha's Vineyard Book Festival for having us. I want to thank, of course, Michael. You want to say anything? I'll let you close us out and let people go home, but I'll leave you with the final word. Go ahead, pal.
Well, thank you, Harlan. You're the man, and your book is coming out next month. When is great. When is a noun, not a verb in this case.
Yes.
But anyway, you're great, and thank you for doing this. And to everybody out there who read the book, thank you for taking the time to read it. And those of you that are going to get the book, I hope you enjoy it. It's truth and it's passion, and it's my story. It's everyone's got their own story, and everyone's story is important. This is just mine. I'm going to be making it a book. So, yeah.
All right.
Right.
Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll all see you soon. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks.
Over and out, guys.
Thanks for your book festival.
Billy's a diamond, Quinn a wampanoag, singing the old songs, bull raking the hogs. At 7 sharp, you know his boat's in gear, gonna tear right out of here. Shake down the bushels till they like to burst. The scallops are plenty, he's off the pond first. Like the clams he harvests, man did he spawn. Each one is special, he's the king of the pond. He was the king of the pond. He was sweet and he was strong, like the tide that carries him, like the way he sang along. Everyone knew he was king of the pond. Towing the drags till they're deep and full, doesn't need hydraulics to help him pull. Like the clams he harvests, man did he spawn. Each one is tasty, he's the king of the pond. He He was the king of the pond. He was sweet and he was strong, like the tide that carries him, like the way he sang along. Everyone knew he was king of the pond. And on his deathbed, well, they all gathered round, drum beat by the fire, and the whiskey went down. 13, 15, no one is quite sure. He's father to many, and he's grandfather to more. He's the king of the pond. He was the king of the pond. He was the king of the pond. Like the tide that carries him, like the way he said